say, and we were talking about kind of our old concepts of what God was, you know. Certainly something external, something you would pray to, you know, and you would want some sort of intermediary sometimes to represent you to that God. Certainly a punishing God, I have to say. Not a very loving God, as I was introduced to her, and so was she, I have to say, Church of England, she talks about. But it was always kind of always out here, you know. They never really directed you to go inside and search for that God, you know. And she believes that's the biggest difference with spiritualism, you know. That if you go into that quiet, still place inside of you and try and touch that power there, particularly when things are difficult, you know. It's the big difference between us and most other religions. She feels anyway, you know. She also really believes that, you know, we didn't by chance end up in the families we ended up with. Now, sometimes you'd say, oh God, how did that happen? But it's a miracle we were born here at all, you know, and for that to just be randomly the family we end up with, she's not so secure that that's true. She believes that in some ways, whether that really be horrific challenges, I have to say, there's something good that can come from it. There's something good that can come from everything. But just like us, the soul of, you know, that beautiful poem, God of the Granite and the Rose, God is in everything. If you start to look at it that way, it's in the tree that's outside. It's in the soul of a bee. It's in a sparrow. And if we start to awaken ourselves to looking at every little thing really in that way, it transforms the planet into being a different way, you know. If we go into when we're into distress, and it's really becoming quite popular now, mindfulness, tapping, things that can calm us down, you know. And it's not something out there that's going to do that for us. It's a still place that we go inside, you know. When people come for readings and we talk about their children, I'll say, oh, that one's got a lot of anxiety. It's the first thing I don't say is, you know, go look for God. It's like, go take a yoga class and find a way to calm yourself down, you know. So the central belief, you know, going inside, maybe there's cultures around the planet, I have to say, that really did focus on that quite a bit, you know. And I have to say, being a former Catholic, they attempted to bring that up with contempt with a prayer and things. But it was always asking something else external to fix it, you know. But as spiritualists, as we walk through the planet, to go into that still, quiet place and find a place of peace is really important. But more importantly, what it really attempts to do is for you to heal yourself to a point where you're comfortable with being at peace with your own soul, being able to be still enough and not fill it with other stuff, you know, to continuously have to run, you know. Or for some of us at different points in our lives through choices we've made, and, you know, for some people forced into places they live, you know, what we call soul sickness. Because there definitely is soul sickness on this planet. And I can't say when I was younger I probably touched soul sickness. It was very broken, you know. But it's our responsibility, once we start to take responsibility, and spiritualism really stands for that. Take responsibility for your life. Take responsibility for your spiritual condition. Take responsibility for healing what you need to. You know? Don't look at something external to do that. You know? The beautiful thing about, you know, sometimes a prayer will do, is I think it just stops us, you know. Last night I was leaving, you know, I ended up with a day, it was supposed to be a different program that was canceled, so I had a day here to do stuff in the church. And I was leaving and there was nobody here. And I could have just left, but, you know, something draws you into the chapel and you come in here and you just sit in the quiet, you know. And I think that's sometimes a prayer thing, you know. Sometimes you just go into that quiet place, you know, and, you know, you're at peace with your own soul, and you're at peace with what the concept of God is that dwells within you. Because I truly do believe it's the God that sent you upon the journey, that aspect that dwells within you that has created this planet to the magnificence as it is. And if we can recognize everything that walks around us with that potential, it's there, you know. And you can say, how can you say that with really not nice people? It's been said in spiritualism that their soul never really ignited. That they're in some level still working from an animalistic place, you know, of cruelty or need or materialism, you know, survival. You know. But if we can take the aspects that even break us and move that to something that could possibly help someone else along the way, we've reached for what God, I think, would intend us to do with some of that brokenness. You know? Because we feel it when someone else reaches out to us when we're hurting. You know? Even just as a kind thing. Our soul recognizes it and responds. You know? So the big difference, I have to say, from where we've been with, you know, even a God who sits on a throne and punishes us, I have to say, to my concept now of God is love and is only love. You know, when we can ignite our own souls, I have to say, and render service to humanity, even in our brokenness, when we can help someone along the way. You know, but particularly for us, I have to say, and spiritualism is not the easy religion in that way. It makes us go inside and start to take, you know, responsibility for everything. Joe used to say it this way, you know, it always says, oh, be like children, children of God. Well, children act badly sometimes, you know. Hopefully adults act a little bit more responsibly, you know, hopefully, you know. But we are responsible for our soul and our spirit. But that soul that stirs, you know, because when someone in some ways does something kind in that way, we react and we recognize the God that's within someone else. And if we can ignite that soul piece to us, we really do have to act on humanity's behalf. You can't walk through the planet looking at it differently. You know? And that beautiful poem, you know, God of the granite and the rose, you know, if we walk out of here and start to recognize it in the smallest of things, it just makes the whole planet a bit different. You know? So may you in some ways today, the next days to come, find that place to go sit inside and feel that connection to you, which really has to do with the breath of God coming through you. Because the minute that's finished here, we move on to another spiritual plane. As long as that breath comes through us, the presence of God is there. You know, whether we turn sometimes to recognize it is a big difference. You know? I can remember when I was working for the Catholic Church, there was a big debate, I have to say, and it was a big debate, whether they should be taking the big donations of the mafia kings who would come to church but were killing people on the side. But should we take all that money? You know, and we were in the midst of it where I happened to be stationed at that point. And they decided, we'll just keep taking the money. You know, where's even the morality in that? I have to say, where's the God source in that? And we can look at that big little piece there and say, that's an example, you know. But I know for me, and I catch myself all the time, it's true, you know. If we just take a reflection every day of how our own day went, and we say, you know, you really were not a nice person today. You know, you were in a mood all day, you can say to yourself. You know. Or, I could have been a little bit nicer yesterday. Yesterday on the Panera line, I would say. The woman in front of me who just was not getting it. And I got a bit impatient. I could have been a little bit nicer. And I said that to myself walking up. I didn't say anything, but, you know, I was building into a hissy fit. You know. So if we really do try and, you know, at least get the concept of, you know, is this really okay? Could I have done that betterly? And there's truth, you know, particularly when the planet gets stressful, our reaction to things, you know. But to recognize the God source that is within everybody, you know, even when they don't even recognize it within themselves, is a whole different way to look at God. You know, because it used to be the incense, and I love all of it, the candles, the statues, you know, and it makes us feel comfortable. But it's more important we go inside and be able to be still and comfortable inside. And when we're in a place of turmoil, to be able to rest in the presence of God and just be at peace and calm ourselves down. Because that will serve us well in this journey. Because today, tomorrow, next week, 3 months from now, I have to say, all of us will find ourselves in a little position where we should just breathe and back down. Self-maintenance. And that other little beautiful thing that we've heard, restraint of pen and tongue, which took me a lot of years to learn. a lot of years, a lot of years. My mom used to do, my mom and dad always used to fight, it was just their way. You know, so after my dad passed, she still liked that, and I think she was missing on some level, I have to say. So she would throw a bomb across the room at you, and knew you would react, I have to say, just go for it, you know. And somewhere I got a bit wise and realized she was doing this, so I stopped reacting, and she didn't know what to do with it, you know. But I realized, you know, the minute you're headed into the fight, you get to a point where there's no turning back, and you're out of control. You know, if you can stop even going there, I have to say, there's a power about it. There's a stillness about it, I have to say. There's a peace about it. You know? So in the protection of our own being as we go through the days, may we take the time just to go into a quiet place and rest in the presence of the God that dwells within, and find some way to capture that peace for yourself, because it will help us to cope through this lifetime. There's no doubt there's points in our lives to go inside. There's just so much pain if you lose someone, or really hard things that happen to us in life in those really hard places. And hopefully there are people around in the communities and the families that reach out to us at that point to comfort us, you know, to help us to heal when we're broken. You know. But definitely the sacred path really does go to look, to me, for the God within. And it's important as spiritualists that we, you know, not look at everything that was out there. Somebody sitting on a throne somewhere, you know, that might find pleasure or might not like it. It's so foreign now. You know. God of the granite roses, love that dwells within everything. But for those of us who choose to awaken it, we realize that love has to touch our journey here and humanity in a positive way. Those are my thoughts for today.